Once upon a time, there was an island that sat lonely in the blue sea. It had been many years since anyone had visited it, since its shores had seen any human faces or heard any sound of laughter or voices, and even the animals seemed to avoid it. No birds sang in its trees, no monkeys chattered in its foliage, and not a single deer set foot on it. But still, life existed there, hidden, silent, and unseen. One day, however, the island's tranquility was broken by the arrival of two fishermen who were arguing loudly. "It's over there!" shouted one. "I saw it fall from that tree into the water." "No, it fell right here," retorted the other. "And I was the first to see it." They continued to argue for a while, but neither would concede defeat. So eventually they decided to do what their ancestors had done before them when faced with an insoluble problem. They drew lots. As it turned out, the lot fell to the youngest of the two, and he was very unhappy about this. He had much preferred to stay at home mending his nets than go out into the dangerous sea. But there was no escape now, so he grabbed his spear and paddled out to the middle of the sea, where the argument between the two old men had taken place. There, under the water, lay a large piece of driftwood, and beside it glistened something that sparkled like gold. The young man reached for it, pulled it up to the surface, and found it was a small wooden box filled with precious jewels and gold coins. But just then, a terrible shark suddenly emerged from the water and lunged at him. The young man screamed and dropped the box. In a panic, he started paddling frantically away, but the shark was too fast for him. It snatched the box in its mouth and disappeared into the depths. The young man could have wept. His heart broke at the loss of the treasure, which was supposed to belong to him. He returned home, dejected, where he was scolded by his father for being so careless. "You should have held on tight to it, you silly sausage," he said. "You're nothing but trouble. Go back out to sea and get it back." Of course, the young man didn't want to go back into the sea, but how could he disappoint his father? So once again, he set off in his little boat and sailed out to the middle of the sea. This time, though, he took his spear with him again. Soon enough, the shark came swimming towards him, pushing the box in front of it with its nose. The shark let the box touch the tip of the young man's spear, and then, seeing that it couldn't get any closer, it disappeared into the depths again. This time, the young man wasn't afraid. Instead, he carefully picked up the box and kept hold of it tightly until he was safely back on land. Then he ran as fast as he could to his father, who was so pleased with himself. "Well done," he said. "Bring the box to me." And when he saw how heavy it was, he knew that it was worth more than all the fish in the sea. "My boy, you are indeed my pride and joy," he said. "You've brought us enough money to live on for the rest of our lives." So they divided up the treasure and gave some to the village elder, some to the chief of the tribe, and some to the king. And the king was so grateful to the young man for bringing such great wealth to his kingdom that he invited him to the palace and asked him, "How can I ever repay you for your service?" The young man thought for a moment. "Oh, if it please your majesty," he said. "There is an old woman who lives at the edge of town, shunned by everyone because she's ugly. She's like a dog that has no master, and she has to beg for food to survive. If you could build her a house, I would be greatly rewarded." The king was deeply moved by these simple wishes and immediately ordered that a beautiful house be built for the old woman. Then he summoned her and said, "This house is yours forever, and every day you will receive 3 meals cooked by the royal chef and served to you by the handsomest pages in the kingdom." The old woman couldn't believe her eyes. Her shriveled heart burst with gratitude. She bowed low before the king and said, "May your majesty live as long as the river flows, and may your reign last as long as the sun shines in the sky." Then she hurried to the new house, where she spent the rest of her days eating delicious food, drinking fine wine, and basking in the warmth of a roaring fire. Many years passed, and the young man who had saved the kingdom so much wealth became a very important official in the king's court. He married the king's daughter, and they lived in a beautiful palace with golden roofs. One night, though, When the moon hung high in the sky and the wind sighed through the trees, the young man awoke in his bed and realized that his wife wasn't there. He got up and went to look for her. He found her standing by the window, gazing out at the stormy sea, and he asked her why she was so sad. "Oh, nothing," she replied hastily. "I was just thinking how many poor people there are in our kingdom, who don't have enough food to eat and who have to beg in order to survive." The young man listened to her and thought for a moment. "If it please my love," he said, "I think I know a way we could help them." And he told her about the old woman at the edge of town, who had been given a beautiful house and plenty of food to eat. "It seems unfair that there are people who have too much while others have too little," the princess said. "Why do you and we take half of what we have and give it to those who are less fortunate than we are?" "That's an excellent idea," replied the young man. "Let's start tomorrow." The next morning, they summoned their servants and told them to load up half of their possessions onto a ship and sail to the nearest village where beggars lived. When the villagers saw the ship arrive filled with food, clothes, jewels, and gold, they couldn't believe their eyes. "Who has sent this?" they cried. And when they were told it was the king's son and daughter-in-law, they shouted, "Long live the princess and the prince! May they reign over our village and take care of our needs." And the prince and princess agreed, saying they would return as often as they could. So whenever there was a festival in the kingdom, instead of celebrating only with their own people, they celebrated with all the poor people from nearby villages, too. They gave away half of everything they had until they had nothing left. Then they sailed back home, empty-handed. When the king learned of what his son and daughter-in-law had done, he was very angry. "Why did you give away so much?" he shouted. "I worked hard for many years to accumulate that wealth, and now you've given it all away to beggars." The prince and princess remained calm. "We gave it away because we wanted to help those in need," they replied. "If you had done the same, you wouldn't be so upset." The king couldn't find an answer to this, so he fell silent. From that day on, the prince and princess lived simply, giving away most of what they had to those who had nothing. And because they lived according to this principle, they never lacked for anything themselves. And that's why, dear friends, we shouldn't forget those who are less fortunate than us, especially at times of celebration. Let us always remember to share our happiness with those who are experiencing sadness.